At last I contrived my departure, lingering only long enough to exchange the customary courtesies with Lycurgus and Seraphina, those indefatigable hosts who, with great heroism, concealed their tiredness beneath a thin but gallant veneer. Although several times I did observe Lycurgus attempting to yawn with his teeth firmly clenched, producing the unfortunate effect of one being discreetly throttled by his own jaw. Out in the grand hall I was briefly abandoned to my solitude until my goblin, who had been deeply engrossed in what must have been a most enthralling discussion with the dregs of the household staff, finally tore himself away, scurried toward me, bowed in a perfunctory manner, and led the way toward a staircase to the upper floors. I surveyed my allocated room. It was simple, but with all the necessary facilities and furniture for a comfortable stay. The four-poster bed was carved with decorations typical for this region, a bit rough and folksy for my taste. However, I discovered upon close examination that the mattress was commendably soft and the linen quite beyond reproach. I exchanged the tyranny of my traveling attire for the gentler embrace of an embroidered silk gown and slippers. To my surprise, my servant had actually succeeded in performing the rare miracle of domestic service. Luggage was not merely unpacked, but its contents intelligently arranged, each article spirited away into the correct drawer or closet, as if by some benevolent sorcery. Most gratifying of all, he had obeyed my crucial directive, installing the unopened bottle of brandy upon the nightstand, accompanied by a silver beaker, a gleaming silver box, and a candelabra. Having consigned my abandoned garments to storage and dispatched the poor creature to his well-earned bed, I turned to the window. Drawing back the curtains, I encountered the kind of darkness which poets mistake for profundity and insomniacs for despair. The gardens, faintly etched in the borrowed light of my room, dissolved quickly into a velvet blackness. Silence, broken only by the muffled voices of distant guests, smothered by walls so thick they seemed constructed not only to shelter inhabitants, but to ensure all their secrets remained well kept. I consulted my watch once more. Time is never so impertinent as when one is waiting. I located the twin to the silver traveling beaker, reuniting the set. Standing before the room's mirror, I gave my hair and fur a perfunctory brushing and checked my smile for stubborn pieces of buffet, then slipped quietly from the room and retraced my steps down dark corridors. During my journey, I encountered only the spectral industry of a few servants engaged in the late-night tidying. Of guests there was no trace, and of my hosts even less. Unsurprisingly, I found the grand hall empty. I'd guessed that the poor pup would have trouble finally ejecting well-wishers and fussing family from his room for the night, so I occupied myself with studying the nearest tapestry. It was old, and was indeed of the highest quality. The work was exquisite, the colors still whispering of their former brilliance. No doubt these were treasured heirlooms, handed down through the generations. Ancestral sermons woven in silk and wool to remind offspring that their destiny was to mercilessly chase and kill things. The themes were suitably vigorous, stags fleeing heroically to their doom, wild boar resembling pincushions full of arrows stumbling amongst gaily colored flowers, all pursued by horse-wolves of improbable nobility, bristling with crossbows and lances. One panel in particular caught my eye, a map-like rendering of the estate, executed with a cartographer's precision and an artist's license. It depicted an earlier version of the house, its gardens, decorative ponds, and walled enclosures. Within the patterned compounds grew herbs and plants unmistakably medicinal in nature. No doubt the kind that cure everything except the desire for more herbs. Beyond the enclosing wall stretched fields and woodland, and in the western forest loomed a great stylized oak, encircled by florid embellishments. A straight tree-lined road led to it, marked so clearly that one might almost mistake it for an invitation. I surmised that this would be the appointed location for tomorrow's solemn ceremony. My study was interrupted by a quiet cough from the end of the room. I looked up to see Maximilian standing in breeches and shirt-sleeves. He walked over to me. "I thought I'd never get away," he said in a low voice. "I'm so glad you did," I replied. Maximilian looked at the tapestry in front of me. After a moment, he asked, "Is this the house here?" I nodded. He widened his view to take in the rest of the map until his head stopped moving when he had spotted the oak and its procession way. He was silent for a while, then said, "It'll be a carriage ride for everyone tomorrow. I hope bad weather doesn't cancel the event," he added through clenched jaws. It looks to be just under a mile away, and I imagine the temporary shelters and tents have already been set up in case of rain," I reassured him. "Yes, knowing my father, nothing will have been left to chance. After all, this is his wedding into a more noble bloodline, giving him legal right to add a couple of heraldic beasts either side of the family's humble merchant badge of arms, with me as an exchanged sacrifice for a taste of aristocracy." He looked gloomily at the tapestry. Hoping to brighten his spirits, I said softly, "I'm sure nothing will raise its ugly head to come between you and your intended bride during your big day. Let's see if we can ensure that is not the case during your big night." He looked at me. "Well, Andreas, I don't know what your solution might be, but I could do with some sympathetic company tonight. In any dueling match, would young sir be a sword or a scabbard?" I inquired as casually as I could. "Oh, definitely the former, Andreas. Then I think my little plan might have a fighting chance of succeeding. Come on, I have a refined old vintage upstairs that needs opening." We walked in silence through empty corridors back to my room.